The recording will be available to everyone in this meeting on Microsoft Stream. So if you've accessed Teams from your little Office 365 apps, you'll also be able to see Microsoft Stream in the same place. I'm seeing some new faces and names, so that's kind of fun. Ron, I think I saw your mouth moving, but you were muted, so. If you click the little microphone icon on the screen, that will unmute you. Yep, there you go. Did I do it? Yep.
Thank you for the tip. I never would have found you without Delaney's help.
Yeah, Delaney's great. I have really enjoyed having her on the IT team since January, I think it was. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, she's been a huge help.
I think she likes it too.
Yeah. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. Again, just a couple other quick reminders. Please keep yourself muted unless you have something to say. Please utilize the chat feature for any sort of questions, thoughts, etc., etc. Allie's going to go ahead and moderate that and facilitate that for us, which is a great tip if you are teaching this fall and you have some people joining remotely. I would encourage you to utilize other people in your class as kind of like a chat facilitator, because it's really hard to do both, like focusing on your instruction while also keeping in mind users who are posting in the chat and stuff. So yeah, that's going to be great. I am recording this one and it will go to Microsoft Stream. I'm going to go over kind of the little tips that I have to talk through today. If you're familiar with all of them already, I am by no means expecting you to stay. So if it all looks familiar, don't worry about heading out early. And if it looks very interesting and new, then please feel free to stay. The first thing I'll go over is a little tiny checkbox that makes a huge difference in your course grades. Exclude or include empty grades. That's the first one I'll talk about. And then I'll also go over overridden grades, which are kind of those orange highlighted salmon-y color that you might be familiar with. So I'll go over what that means and how it affects your gradebook. User report, the student view. That's a really great feature that Moodle has that I think is kind of underutilized. So I'll go over that. Entering grades in the faculty portal / what is now J1 Web. I'll kind of go over how to collapse your grader report and see that a little bit differently. Task stream, how to use the single view option and enter the grades that way. And then gradebook categories and manual items. I'll go over how to add categories and maybe some in-class assignments that you want to have in your gradebook, but don't have an activity for in your course. I'll also go over how to make something extra credit, how to use weighted categories, what the aggregation styles are and what that means, and then how to drop the lowest X number of grades from a certain category. So there's kind of the overview of what I'm going to cover today. If you already know all of that, thanks for coming. I'll see you later. So the first thing I would recommend in your course, which hopefully this doesn't come as a surprise to you, but is to build out all of your assignments and activities in the course, because that grade that you put in that activity will automatically go into your gradebook. So the more that you can set that up ahead of time, the easier it will be to manage all of those different settings before the course starts. So I'm going to go over here to grades and the setup tab, and I might move kind of quickly, so please feel free to, again, post in that chat, raise your hand, etc., and I will stop and I'll go slower or I'll repeat something. So in
Elise,
this,
you have a
yeah.
hand up right now. Heads up.
Yes, Ron.
I can't read those pages.
Oh, okay. Is that a little bit better?
It's a little better, but I guess I'll just live with it.
Is everybody else having this problem?
I mean, they're small, but I think that we'll get the gist of where everything is just
Okay.
by watching.
Tell you what if I move this and I make this full screen? Is that better?
I'm fine, but I have a particularly large monitor, so.
Does this work better for people? Better? Okay, I saw a thumbs up. So I saw a couple thumbs up. Sweet. Okay, so exclude or include empty grades. So in this setup view, you'll notice you all have the name of your course by default will show up in this most top parent category. If you go to edit and edit settings on that category, you'll notice a little checkbox here, exclude empty grades. And by default, it should be automatically checked. What this means is that anything that's empty, a grade that's empty in your course will, if it's checked by default, it won't count against a student. So it'll be like it's never happened. That's great for most of the semester. However, if you get to the end of the semester, you still have this checked and you haven't been putting in zeros for your students, they will have an inflated sense of grade. So if Susie submits one assignment, the very first assignment, 5 out of 5, and nothing else the entire semester, she will still think that she's getting an A in your course. That's if you don't put in zeros. So if you leave this checked, which is a great option, please, please, please put in zeros for students who turn in late work or don't turn it in at all. That way they will see their upgraded course total and it hopefully will freak them out a little bit, enough to at least contact you and or submit their homework late. If you uncheck it, which you have the option of doing, if you uncheck it though, everything in your course will show up as a 0 to your students, which means that they would see themselves as getting an F even at the beginning of the term. So there is an argument for why you would do that. It's got a lot of gamification ideas for it. So, you know, when you're playing a game, you always start with 0 points and you always work up to the next level. There is no way that you could go from an A to a C if you leave this unchecked. If you leave it checked, however, a student could start with an A and then, you know, as the course progresses and they stop turning in work, it could go down to a C or an F or whatever. So just either you leave it checked or you leave it unchecked. It's up to you as an instructor, but just really communicate clearly that expectation with your students. And again, if you leave it checked, put in zeros for your grades that are late and or missing. Does that make sense? Yes, I'm seeing head nods. Good. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the setup and I'm going to actually look in the grader report view. So you might have found if you type in grades here, they turn this weird color. And what that means is that it's been manually overwritten. So there's 2 ways that you can type in grades. It's the inactivity grading, where you would go into the course, you would go into the activity, for example, attendance or the assignment here, and you would give them a grade from here. That's an inactivity grade, and that automatically goes into your gradebook. Again, tell me if I should slow down. I'll just keep going otherwise. Okay. So if you don't do an inactivity grade and you just come over here and you type it in, it will actually break the connection from the inactivity grade to your gradebook. And the reason that that is probably the most important that I've seen is when it comes to quizzes. So let's say Susie, I pick on Susie a lot, so I'm sorry, Susie. If Susie turns in a quiz late, but you've granted her, you know, you've given her grace and said, yeah, I'll still take your quiz. Just go ahead and turn it in. But you've already given her a 0 because it was so late. It's now been overridden and the inactivity connection has been broken. So I'll show you how to undo that. I'm actually going to go in here. You go into the single view, and I just made that override for week 1 complete. It's one of these. I've made this a 0 from the grader report view. You'll see it now has an override checkbox on that student and on that activity. So now if I go into this week 1 assignment and I try to grade it from the assignment itself, it actually won't populate here. It won't update it automatically. What you would need to do is uncheck it and hit save. And now it will actually reconnect the auto grading, I guess, if you will, from the inactivity grade. So again, that's really important when it comes to quizzes on BeaconLearning, because if they've gone in and done like a multiple choice quiz and you're expecting that grade to automatically populate in their course gradebook, if you've already overridden it, it won't actually do that. So again, does that make sense? I'm seeing some yeses, some nods. So anytime you manually override a grade from this grader report view, if you want to leave it overridden, that's great, that works. But if you expect the grade from your inactivity grade to now populate back in here, you will need to go to the single view, choose your activity, and uncheck the override, and then hit save. Okay. I'm going to keep going unless somebody stops me. Cool. The next thing I want to show you is the student view. And this is a great way to see what your students in your course are seeing about their grades. Sometimes you've probably heard them say, I went into my gradebook and I can't see the course total for your course that you're teaching. And you're like, I can see your course total. You must be crazy. But the students can actually see different things than you can, which makes sense. But if you want to make sure you're seeing the same thing as them, the same score, the fact that there is a score, I would recommend going, again, we're still in this grades window. The first tab is view, and the last tab on the second row is user report. And you're viewing the report as the user, so as the student, in other words, and you can select from your list of students here which one you want to view it as. This is a test course, so I'm not revealing anything FERPA protected, just so everyone knows. And now if you scroll to the very bottom, if you don't see a course total here, your students can't either. And the most common reason that this would happen is if you have an activity in your course that has a max grade, but is hidden. So usually I see that in like a course you've been teaching for years and years, and you say, oh, this year I don't want to use this OneDrive upload test, so I'll just keep it hidden for now because I might want to use it next time I teach. That's great, that's fine. But keep in mind that if you hide it, this assignment will now be hidden and your course grade total won't show up because the gradebook doesn't know how you want to calculate that hidden assignment. So there's a few options that you could do. You could delete the assignment in question. You could edit the assignment so it's actually a non-graded assignment. Or you could come up here to your setup tab go to course grade settings and scroll down to the overview report and the user report. And there are two places. I'm going to see if I can show both at once. Hide totals if they contain hidden items. And it's down here as well, so I can't quite show both. Well, yeah. Okay. If you are hiding these assignments because you're not using them, you can show totals excluding the hidden items. That's what I see, probably 90%, if not more than that. However, if you have hidden an assignment that you do want in the course total, and the one example I can think of that I have heard about that is an instructor was hiding forums that they were using in their course, but they were hiding them so that students would stop posting to them after the certain due date. And she did want those totals included. So she needed to select show totals including hidden items on both of these fields. But again, 90% of the time, show totals excluding hidden items. And that change will allow your students to see their course total as you progress. And it will still allow you to keep those activities in your course hidden with a course total option on it. I'm going to pause and do a check-in. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Oh, I see a chat. Yep. Okay, perfect. I will keep going then. The next thing I want to show everyone is in this grader report view again. When you're entering in your final grades, you're only entering in the letter grades. So you might be familiar with just scrolling to the right and trying to keep track of which student grade is which. Here's a handy trick. You can actually collapse this view. There's 3 different views that you can toggle between. My favorite for when you're submitting course totals is this completely collapsed view where you can only see the course total and the student name. So you can toggle between those 3 views. There's the full view, there's the collapsed view, and there's one more view that I don't really know what to call it, but it has pretty much everything except for the course total. Not 100% sure why you want that one, but just keep in mind that there are 3 to toggle through. And if you click that 3 times, then you'll see all of them. So again, if you collapse it, you can see all of the course totals and their name right next to each other, and it should make submitting final grades a lot easier. All right, I don't see any questions about that one, so I'll keep going. I'm going to go to the single view again that we looked at before. And I'm going to look at, I have one called signature assignment. So that's what I would probably normally see for your task stream assignments. And I recommend using the single view to override and enter the task stream grades in manually because it's really easy to just do an override all. Type in their scores from task stream. Let's say they all got 100s. And then in this feedback column, see additional feedback in task stream. You can copy this and paste it for everyone's feedback and then hit save. And I think that is probably the easiest way to just enter in the task stream grades into BeaconLearning, I should clarify. Task stream does not automatically enter in these grades for you, but then again, not every course has a task stream component, and that would be something to discuss with your dean if your course needs that piece or not. If you've never heard of it, it's probably safe to assume you don't need it in your course. The next thing I'll show, unless there's any questions on that one, I'll also actually, while I'm here, I'll mention this perform bulk insert. If there isn't a grade here, it can automatically insert a 0 for you. So if you have 5 students who didn't submit it, it can automatically insert a 0 and you don't have to type those in. So that can sometimes be helpful. In the setup view again, I'll go over how to add or how to make an assignment extra credit. Okay, this one's already been made into an extra credit activity, and you can tell by this little plus symbol, plus minus symbol. If you can't see it, I can try to zoom in here. But that's what that symbol is the extra credit symbol. So it doesn't calculate into your course total points, but it will calculate into your student's individual score. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. So in any of your assignments, you can go into edit and edit settings and check this little extra credit box. So it's pretty simple. Just already add, if you already have your activity in there, your gradebook item, just come in here, edit settings, check as extra credit, and hit save changes. Any questions on that one? That one was pretty simple. Okay. Next, weighted categories. So a lot of times I'll see a syllabus that has, I want 50% dedicated to participation, 50% dedicated to quizzes throughout the course. That might be a weird way of doing it, but we'll go with that for example. You can actually check these boxes. I would recommend creating categories for your different weighted categories, which I actually have. Oops, I accidentally skipped that option. So in your setup tab, if you come down here and you go to add category, you can create one, let's say participation. I'm going to leave it as natural, and I will leave it as exclude empty grades. You can add any of your activities into the category that you've created, participation, and it'll recalculate. And now you can mark this participation folder category with however many percentage points you want for that weight according to your syllabus. The important thing to know about this is that as you're going through here, they all need to add up to 100. The gradebook will keep recalculating these and changing these fields for you if they don't equal 100. And sometimes that might drive you batty. So when you're going through them, make sure that they all add up to 100%. And you can do this at the category level. So I want practice sets to be 90%. I want this next category to be 10. You can also do that within your category. So you can say, well, this particular week 1 practice test, I want that one to be worth 50, and I want the rest to be however many percent of that category. So that's not of the whole. If you have an item within a category, that's the weight, or that's the percentage of the category itself. Sound good? It's hard to, you can't like look out in a room and see people's faces to gauge where people are at. So I'm going to really rely on that chat feature. So please, if you have questions or want me to stop, say something again differently, please let me know. So this aggregation style, I did briefly touch on it, but I'm going to go back. And you can, if you want, you can do different aggregation styles by category. I would probably recommend leaving it all the same. In particular, I recommend the natural aggregation style, and this is just how your course grades are calculated or combined. So the natural aggregation style is the sum of points, essentially, and you have the option to either scale them by weight or not. That's probably the one I see most common. It is the default category. But I've also seen a couple people use, like in the nursing program, Linda, I don't know if she's on the call, but she does the simple weighted mean of grades, I believe, which basically turns it into a percent. I like the natural because it's the most flexible, I think, and it's also the easiest to follow for students and instructors to find out if something did go wrong, like what the problem was. So again, that's what I recommend, but it is up to the instructor. Any questions on that so far? You guys are great. Okay, perfect. The last thing I'm going to show you is the drop the lowest. So let's say you have 14 quizzes in your course and you want to drop the lowest 4 so that the student grade only shows their top 10 grades. In this same category edit feature or setting, you can, oh, there's no items in here. So let me see, I can do this one. Edit settings. I can drop the lowest however many. It is important though, again, enter those zeros if you have it excluding the empty grades, just to ensure that if a student doesn't, let's say they've gotten 100% on their first 3, they're not even going to attempt the last one, they'll need to have a 0 in that last assignment to make sure that it's dropping the 0 and not one of the first 3. And the other thing to note is that if you do all of your items, your graded items within a category have to be the same amount of points in order for you to be able to drop the lowest X number of assignments. And that's, I think, the gradebook doesn't know how to calculate everything out if you're trying to drop one of the lowest, but they're all different points. You know, how does it calculate what the lowest is? So you would need all of your quizzes or something to be the exact same number of total points, or your forums or your journal posts or whatever you're trying to drop the lowest of. And that is, I would say it's probably a great idea to include something like this, given our current state. You know, it might be a great way to provide some grace while also including some accountability for your students. So keep that in mind. It is an option. It's a great one. I've seen it many times and used well. That's the last thing that I had on my training. Those were our 10 gradebook items that we covered. Is there anything you want me to go back over? Any questions that came up? Any tips that you want to share while we have so many instructors on the call? Things that have worked well in your courses? Things you wish you had known when you were teaching? Anything at all? Nope. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I'll go ahead and stop the recording now. And there we go.